Congressman, let's first start off with the stimulus. Do you look at it as progress or almost a waste of time, given the gap and the yawning gap between what these 10 Republican senators are proposing versus what Joe Biden is asking for? It's roughly about a third of the asking price with no state aid. How does this, at the end of the day, get done? We all agree it needs to get done.
Sure. So it has to get done. We need to go big. We need to go quickly. And sure, I would much prefer to do it with some Republican support, to do it in a bipartisan way, because the American people are crying out for us in Washington, D.C. to be working together. So we can move along two tracks. I'm glad that Republicans, at least some of them, put forward an alternative, even though it's inadequate. I'm really glad that Joe Biden is doing the decent thing and welcoming them to the White House to talk things over, to see if we can find common ground. That's what he ran on. That's what he ran to do. But at the same time, we are moving this week in the House with the legislative steps that would be required to pass Joe Biden's proposal in the House and in the Senate with a majority vote in both houses. So we'll be ready to go either way.
All right, a couple follow-up questions quickly on stimulus, Congressman. One is Republicans have been saying, like Mitt Romney, hey, a household making $300,000 a year shouldn't be getting a stimulus check. Makes sense to me. I'm curious how much we're really talking about of the $1.9 trillion that would represent. And secondly, I don't know of any governor, including conservative governors from the reddest of red states, that don't think their states need federal aid. Otherwise, they're going to have to raise taxes or cut costs in a terrible way, in an unaffordable way right now. So what is the pushback from Republicans on Capitol Hill to help out states?
Yeah, they're saying that the $2,000 checks should be more targeted. And I think that's a conversation that we can absolutely have, and we may be able to save a bit of money there. But they also eliminate all the state and local direct aid, as you said. And yeah, that's totally bipartisan in the states and in the municipalities. My municipalities in the 7th District in New Jersey, I got more Republican mayors than Democratic mayors. They're all concerned about being able to balance their budgets without raising taxes. So this is just an ideological fight that Republicans in Washington have picked. They cut out a really excellent proposal that Biden made to provide tax credits for children, refundable tax credits for kids, which would eliminate half of child poverty in America, even as it stimulates the economy. So that's how they save the money. They also take some of the school money away, which I don't quite understand, since we all want to get our kids back to school.
All right, I want to pivot to the bizarro world that you have to inhabit, where Marjorie Taylor Greene is across the aisle from you. Now, I should mention that your old colleague, Denver Riggleman, who was on the other side of the aisle, but like you, talked at length before January 6th about the real threat of QAnon and some of these extremist groups. He says we minimize these at our peril. January 6th was not a one-off. What are Republicans going to do about her? I mean, she has a committeeship, for crying out loud, with education and labor. At the least, will she be stripped of that? What's going to happen to her? And tell people what it's like at home here to have to go to work with somebody who talks about assassinating the Speaker of the House.
Yeah, it's not what you expect in the House of Representatives of the greatest democracy in the world. So you're asking me what are Republicans going to do? I'm not sure if I'm the best person to ask that question, but it is the right question, because it's up to them. They get to decide who they appoint on their side to committees. They would have to agree with us if we were, for example, to vote to expel her. You can't do that with a partisan vote. You shouldn't do that with a partisan vote. It would have to be both sides. So, look, all I will say is we've learned in the last month what I and others were saying a long time ago, that what happens online eventually happens in the real world. If there is violence online, if there is hate speech, if there are conspiracy theories that are being spread and promoted wildly among the American people, eventually people are going to act on that crazy stuff. And we saw them, thousands of ordinary Americans laying siege to the Capitol of the United States wanting to hang Mike Pence and kill Nancy Pelosi, that is the product of allowing this kind of craziness and hate and lies to spread all of these months. And unfortunately, Republican leadership looking the other way at best as these people came to prominence in their party. So they're going to have to show us who they are. We are going to move to get her off of that committee. So that's a vote that I think they're going to have to take in relatively short order. Hopefully, they will avoid the trouble of having to take that vote by just deciding to get her off that committee and any committee themselves.
Adam Kinzinger, your colleague, a Republican, seems to be about the only voice. Yes, there were 9 others who voted for impeachment along with him, but who's calling out saying, I don't recognize my party anymore. Privately, do many others feel the same way but don't have the courage for fear of a primary or a Trump tweet? Or is he really an island out there?
Well, Adam is a friend, and he has tremendous courage and integrity, and he's a Republican, which means like he and I, like we could debate issues, we wouldn't agree on them, but we respect each other for having that integrity. I wish there were more than 10 who were willing to speak out as those 10 did on the impeachment vote. I know there are certainly way more than 10 who felt the same way, who agreed, but they were afraid to say what was in their hearts. And they're afraid, they're afraid of getting challenged from the right in a primary election. Some of them, and this is the really sad part, some of them are also afraid for the safety of their families. If the President of the United States, or in this case a former president, has started a movement in this country that makes you afraid for your safety and your life if you vote to impeach that president, well, that's a pretty strong argument for impeaching that president in and of itself. You know what?
That is the best way put for why at this moment in history it shouldn't be as hard a choice as for somebody is. But anyway, Congressman, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much, and don't get buried in today, okay?
Thank you. Stay safe.